Hi everyone, Sandman here. Today's video is brought to you by a donation from Tonic X, and here's what he has to say. Hey Sandman, I wanted to thank you for your continuing contributions, and I also wanted to share a recent story. I discovered MGTOW on my journey of self-improvement, and can honestly say that it's transformed my life, and not only when dealing with women, but also dealing with men. You see, recently I was getting my haircut, and my barber, who's also my gym mate, ended up telling me that he was shortly getting married, and I asked him when the big day was. And I also made the joke of, don't do it, and then he chuckled. He asked me if I was ever getting married, and ever since I ended up taking the red pill I advised him that I don't think I ever will, and that I'm really happy. He then mentioned that I was being selfish, and that ended up bothering me because his response was characteristic of what other MGTOWs have been saying about shaming, and it was the first time someone brought it up with me. We're both the same age, in our late 30s, and he runs his business, and my business is also taking off, and I can honestly say that my business wouldn't have taken off with a woman basically nagging me in the ear. By being a former male model, I thought that my friend, who can also flirt and get any female that he wants, wouldn't call me selfish because I wanted to focus on improving myself and my community more so than finding a partner. What are your thoughts on self-identity or being called selfish? And thanks. Stay blessed. Well, Tonic X, thanks for your donation. When I was younger, I always used to hear my mother say that women that didn't want children of their own were selfish, but she never said the same thing about men. Looking back on this today, I see it's reverse psychology to have me get married to a woman that actually wants to have kids. By saying that a woman that didn't want children was being selfish and bad, she was telling me that she approved of me dating and seeing women that actually wanted them. Her comments were a passive-aggressive way to convince me to procreate, and in my mind she was elevating women that wanted to procreate to a higher status and lowering the rest. And she was sneaky and never actually called me selfish for not having kids. She didn't try and shame me into procreation, but simply shamed other people who weren't into it. She was probably hoping that by shame-targeting the types of women that she didn't want me with, then by default, I would basically select so-called unselfish women that she intended me to be with. With regards to men being selfish if they don't marry, there are two main reasons that these types of shaming tactics are used against us. The first reason for it is basically for us simply not having kids, which is considered selfish. And the second function is to get men to provide and protect for a woman, by default by having kids. Tonic X, your friend is telling you that you're selfish because he's getting married and he's probably caught up in romantic love, which also has the additional side effect of turning him into a white knight. Romantic love turns men into tools for women, tools that no longer think about their own hopes, dreams, and self-desires. And the opposite of the so-called selfish man is actually the simp. When your friend is telling you not to be selfish, he is by default telling you to fall in love and become a simp. And I'm sure that you won't take his advice and do this, because your friend's intentions are coming from his chemically induced white knight point of view, and that's about it. If you understand where it's coming from, then it won't offend you. People say that single men are selfish all the time, and as far as I'm concerned, women that allow men not to learn about female nature are even more selfish. They want us to fall in love with them and lose our minds when we're with them. And that's probably the most destructive thing for a man's ego. After all, romantic love is incredibly selfish, and even the ancient Greeks saw that it was a mental illness. To them, eros was a more mature form of love between a husband and wife. And I see this different from romantic love or infatuation, which to me is basically a form of hedonism. And ironically, the most self-destructive form of all. If a mother tells her son that he's selfish for not getting married, what she's trying to say is, if you don't get married, then I won't have grandchildren, which are basically my ultimate form of insurance policy when I get older. Mothers want their sons not to be selfish, and therefore get married, and put themselves at risk, just so their mothers can be the selfish ones that have their old age guaranteed and looked after. Another reason your friend is calling you selfish for not getting married is because, believe it or not, he actually might be jealous of you. He sees his up-and-coming marriage as an end to his independence and freedom to do the things that he really wants. And perhaps his future wife will get him to sell a sports car and purchase a minivan instead. Maybe she'll try and get him to change his business around and run it the way that she sees fit. I've often seen highly successful men being told like little children what they should do with their businesses when they get married. In Tonic X, you also made an interesting observation by saying that there would be no way for you to be successful as a man when a woman was basically yelling into your ear. That's the thing about being unselfish and in love and trying to build a business at the same time. It becomes difficult to focus on yourself because you're simping and wanting to give your attention and affection and basically nurture your partner. A woman doesn't need to be babied. And most husbands these days spend too much time babying their wives instead of bridling them. You too would probably be a narcissistic and ego-driven man if the woman you were with was constantly trying to build up your ego. Besides mothers, other women shame men into marrying, not because they want us to procreate and have kids. They instead want men to look after them and other women in their peer group. So obviously men are going to get shamed into it in the long run. And the stigma around single men being selfish is everywhere, in Hollywood films and television shows, coming from coworkers and friends. It's often inescapable and there doesn't appear to be any way to outrun it. So the best thing you can do is prepare yourself for the criticism when you get it. As a single man, you will be shamed and criticized and told that you're selfish over and over again by people in society because they hope that you won't be able to take the emotional abuse any longer and then start dating, get married, and have lots of children. And then at that point you give up your dreams, get depressed, and join the rest of the misery loves company crowd. And this is the same camp that calls you selfish because you've chosen freedom and happiness instead of getting into a marriage with a partner that you probably loathe. And then they have to destroy your ego so you fall for the same traps that they did, so they can feel solidarity with you and feel like their lives aren't an utter failure. In the not-too-distant future, once immigration starts to hurt Western economies more than it actually helps them, single men will probably receive shaming language directed at them from the government, telling them that they're selfish for not getting married. And those will probably be desperate times for governments if they have to do this. And men will probably be the ones that have the pressure put on them first, because men are the ones that go out and pursue relationships in the first place. But we all know that this has to do with money. The state and the corporations are greedy for it, and they don't want ordinary male citizens to be self-centered and hoard cash. They instead want the money in the hands of the women so that it can be spent, taxed, and put into the consumer economy. That's the real reason men are encouraged not to be single. Because single men are less impulsive, irrational, and can control their spending habits, and they don't have a woman pulling their purse strings. And I can see a push when men could be publicly shamed and humiliated for not getting into relationships. But a lot of dark things have to happen in our society first before this comes about. Married men in relationships are now being forced to keep up the appearances and take on their women's consumer show-off values instead of doing things that make more sense. Tonic X, my advice to anyone being shamed by others for simply being single is basically what you said to your barber friend, which is basically that you're happy and peaceful in your life and that you don't need a woman telling you how to run your business, enjoy your hobbies, or how to think. If it's considered selfish to be a free-thinking man in charge of his own destiny and decisions in life, then sign me up. Because I'd rather fail or succeed based on my own merits than because a wife basically whispered into my head and led me into destruction. And I would also prefer a calmer home life than being told that I'm not doing things around the house properly. Being quote-unquote selfish and giving up your single status means that you become stressed out, you raise your blood pressure, and do what's against your own best interests. And I know in the past I was unselfish and gave others what I thought that they needed and appreciated, and what actually happened was that I was too altruistic and didn't give myself what I needed instead. Who actually thought that being unselfish could actually hurt me that bad? My mother, society, and women can call me selfish all they want, but I know that when I give way more than I take, it leads to mental and emotional issues because I often neglect myself. And that's probably why so many people these days are on blood pressure, anxiety, and depression medication. Because they've chosen not to be selfish and instead have decided to be incredibly giving to all those around them. Many men I know would gladly give the shirts off their backs to help those they love, and that's simply not the best way to go. Speaking about unmarried men being supposedly unselfish, the least selfish man going his own way I can think of is the mayor of MGTOWN, and recently I've heard that his channel was shut down by YouTube for multiple copyright violations. He was doing a lot to help homeless men and working to grow the MGTOW community, and his channel has now been resurrected better than ever, and I'm going to include a link to it in the description below. I'm also sure that having his channel taken down was basically very demoralizing for him. So Mayor, if you can hear this, you're a testament and a way of showing us that men can go their own way and also be considered unselfish and giving at the same time. So everyone please give him your subscription and support, and let's make his channel bigger than it ever was before. Now I want to warn everyone out there that using copywritten material of others will get you into trouble. You should pay for the images or ask for permission for any and all graphics and footage, including sound bites that you use from others in your videos. Because before you know it, they're basically filing copyright complaints and you're being banned permanently from YouTube. And lately we've been seeing a lot of MGTOW content producers dropping off completely, including Neo Unplugged, Truth Over Everything, and even MGTOW United actually scaled back the amount of content that he was producing due to health reasons. And this is the nature of YouTube. People come and go all the time. Anyways, thanks again Tonic X for your donation and topic. And as for everyone else, please follow me on Twitter or like me on Facebook to get tomorrow's video today. Thanks for taking your daily dose of red pills. And remember, a red pill a day keeps the divorce lawyers away. So enjoy the rest of your day, and cheers.